In early 2026, the global economy faces a hidden vulnerability worth over $420 billion. China controls nearly 60% of the world's refined silver supply, the essential metal that powers solar panels, electric vehicles, 5G networks, and advanced defense systems. This isn't just a market share, it's a strategic choke point. In 2023, China demonstrated its willingness to weaponize critical minerals when it restricted exports of gallium and germanium, sending shockwaves through semiconductor markets. Now, as geopolitical tensions rise and clean energy demand surges, the world must confront a sobering question. What happens if China applies the same export controls to refined silver? The answer isn't just about price spikes or supply shortages. It's about the fragility of the entire green transition, the resilience of Western manufacturing, and the quiet realignment of global resource power. What you're seeing in this video, the refineries, the solar farms, the microchips, is not just industrial footage, it's a map of systemic dependency. So don't focus on headlines or speculation. Pay attention to the structure, how one metal connects your rooftop solar panel to Chinese policy, your electric car to national security, and your retirement portfolio to the geopolitics of refining. To understand why refined silver matters more than raw ore, we must first grasp the difference between mining and refining. Silver is mined in countries like Mexico, Peru, and Australia, but over half of it is shipped to China for purification. Why? Because China has spent 2 decades building the world's most efficient, lowest-cost silver refining infrastructure, powered by cheap coal and state-backed capital. Refining isn't simple. It requires complex chemical processes, strict environmental controls, and massive scale to be economical. A typical refinery can process thousands of tons of doré bars, crude silver-gold alloy, into 0.999 fine silver ready for industrial use. Without this step, raw silver is useless for high-tech applications. And today, no other country can match China's capacity. The US has only 2 major refiners. Europe relies on a handful of aging facilities. India and Japan import most of their refined silver. This creates a dangerous asymmetry. The world mines silver globally, but depends on one nation to make it usable. Now consider the demand side. Silver isn't just a precious metal, it's an irreplaceable industrial input. A single utility-scale solar farm uses over 5 million ounces of silver paste in its photovoltaic cells. An electric vehicle contains 25 to 50 grams in its power electronics, battery management, and fast charging systems. Advanced semiconductors rely on silver for thermal interface materials. Even medical devices, from wound dressings to diagnostic sensors, use silver for its antimicrobial properties. According to the Silver Institute, industrial consumption hit a record 620 million ounces in 2025 and is projected to exceed 800 million ounces by 2030 as the clean energy transition accelerates. Crucially, there is no perfect substitute. Copper oxidizes. Aluminum lacks conductivity. Gold is too expensive. Engineers can reduce silver use, but they cannot eliminate it. This isn't optional consumption. It's engineered necessity. If China were to restrict refined silver exports, even partially, the immediate impact would be severe. Prices would surge, not because of scarcity of raw metal, but because of a bottleneck in processing. In 2023, when China limited gallium exports by just 30%, prices tripled within weeks. A similar move on silver could push prices from $85 to $150 or higher almost overnight. But the real damage wouldn't be to investors. It would be to manufacturers. Solar panel makers in the US and EU would face delays or cost increases of $100 to $200 per unit, slowing deployment just as governments are pushing for rapid decarbonization. EV producers like Tesla, Ford, and Volkswagen would see bills of materials rise, forcing price hikes or margin compression. Semiconductor fabs would struggle to secure high-purity silver for advanced packaging. Defense contractors building radar systems for F-35s or missile guidance would face production bottlenecks. Unlike gold, which sits in vaults, silver gets consumed, and once it's embedded in a product, it's gone for decades. This isn't hypothetical. China has already signaled its intent. In late 2025, the Ministry of Commerce added silver to its unreliable entity list review, citing national security concerns over dual-use applications. State media has framed refined silver as a strategic resource, essential for China's own green transition and technological sovereignty. And with domestic demand rising, China installed 200 gigawatts of solar in 2025 alone. Beijing has every incentive to prioritize its own industries over foreign buyers. The precedent is clear. Gallium, germanium, and graphite have all been used as leverage in trade and technology disputes. Silver is the next logical step. The geopolitical implications are profound. By controlling refined silver, China gains a powerful tool to influence global policy. If the US imposes new semiconductor sanctions, China could respond by tightening silver quotas. If the EU advances its carbon border tax, China could slow exports to European solar manufacturers. This isn't crude blackmail, it's calibrated economic statecraft. And it works because the West has no short-term alternative. Building new refineries takes 5 to 7 years and billions in investment. Permitting is slow. Environmental reviews are stringent. Workforce training is complex. In the interim, the only option is to pay premiums or accept delays. This gives China asymmetric leverage. It can inflict pain without suffering equal consequences, since its own industries are protected by state allocation. For ordinary people, the consequences would be both direct and indirect. Your electricity bill could rise if solar deployment slows. Your next EV might cost $1,500 to $3,000 more due to component shortages. Your pension fund could lose value if clean tech stocks underperform. Even your smartphone might face delays if semiconductor production falters. But the deeper impact is strategic. The green transition, the cornerstone of climate policy and energy security, becomes hostage to a single nation's political calculus. This undermines the very premise of decarbonization as a global public good. Instead, it becomes a contest of resource control. Yet this stress test also reveals opportunities. Countries are already responding. The U.S. Inflation Reduction Act includes $2.5 billion in grants to rebuild domestic refining capacity, with projects underway in Nevada and Idaho. The EU's Critical Raw Materials Act fast-tracks permitting for silver recycling and refining. Companies like Hecla Mining and Fortuna Silver are investing in integrated operations that mine and refine on site. And recycling technology is advancing. Urban mining from e-waste could supply 25% of demand by 2035, up from 18% today. These efforts won't replace Chinese capacity overnight, but they create redundancy, a key principle of resilience. Moreover, the threat is accelerating innovation. First Solar is scaling copper-plated cells that use 90% less silver. Tesla's latest inverters cut silver content by 35%. Startups are developing silver-free conductive inks. These aren't perfect, but they reduce exposure. Over time, substitution and efficiency will lower the system's vulnerability. But this transition takes time, capital, and coordination, precisely what's lacking in a fragmented policy environment. Critically, the silver stress test exposes a broader truth. The clean energy revolution is not just about technology, it's about resource sovereignty. You can design the best solar panel in the world, but if you can't secure the materials to build it, the design is meaningless. The West assumed that markets would always provide. China understood that control over processing is the real prize. This is the lesson of gallium, and it applies to lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earths as well. The future of green tech won't be won by who invents first, but by who secures the supply chain. So what should you do? If you're an investor, diversify into companies with integrated supply chains or strong recycling programs. Avoid pure-play miners without refining a capability. If you're a consumer, support policies that fund domestic refining and circular economy initiatives. If you're a policymaker, treat refined silver as the strategic asset it is. Stockpile it, subsidize it, and secure it. And if you're simply watching the world change, understand this. The battle for the green future is being fought not just in labs and boardrooms, but in refineries and ports. China may not restrict silver tomorrow, but the mere possibility forces the world to confront its dependencies. That's the nature of a stress test. It doesn't predict collapse, but reveals weakness. And in this case, the weakness is clear. The West built a clean energy future on a foundation of imported refinement. The path forward isn't autarky, it's resilience. Not hoarding, but hedging. Not panic, but preparation. Because in a world of strategic competition, the nations that control the means of production, not just the ideas, will shape the future. If you want clear, fact-based analysis of how critical minerals, geopolitics, and clean energy intersect, without hype, fear, or oversimplification, subscribe to US Silver Market. We track the real flows behind the headlines because in an age of hidden dependencies, understanding supply chains is your strongest asset.